Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We have a lot of cool farmer board reading to do this week, starting off with a chapter called Saturday Night. So it's going to be interesting to compare this with your Saturday nights, and the next chapter is a Sunday. What do you guys usually do on a Saturday night? Maybe have friends over, possibly. Maybe have movie nights with your family or game nights. Maybe just eat dinner as a family after a full day of things that you do around the house, or maybe going outside. Well, we're going to find out what Almanzo's typical weekend is like in the next couple of chapters. So what do you think he might do on a Saturday night? You'll see. So that night was Saturday night. This is immediately after the ice house, that chapter where we discussed what was happening when they packed their ice. All day long, Mother had been baking, and when Almanzo went into the kitchen for the milk pails, she was still frying donuts. Well, of course, they love donuts. The place was full of their hot brown smell and the weedy smell of new bread, the spicy smell of cakes, and the syrupy smell of pies. She is so busy. Almanzo took, of course, the biggest donut from the pan and bit off its crisp end. Mother was rolling out the golden dough, slashing it into long strips, rolling and doubling and twisting the strips. Her fingers just flew. You could hardly see them, so she's often described as someone who's just always busy and fast. The strips seemed to twist themselves under her hands and to leap into the big copper kettle of swirling hot fat. So she's moving so fast, it's almost like the dough has a mind of its own and it's just hopping over to the pan. Plump, they went to the bottom, sending up bubbles. Then quickly, they came popping up to float and then slowly swell, getting bigger, till they rolled themselves over, their pale golden backs going into the fat and their plump brown bellies rising out of it. It's kind of funny to think of them sort of personified, which means you're giving this object like a human quality. No, they rolled over, Mother said, because they were twisted. Some women made a newfangled shape, round with a hole in the middle. Oh, so I guess that's not the kind of donut she's making. But round donuts wouldn't turn themselves over. These are a twisted one. Have you seen ones like that before? Let me see if I can pull up a picture. Almost like a rope sort of look. So once again, kind of like a rope. So they twist on their own. They just spin in the oil so that no sides get too burnt or too undone. Now they rolled over on their own. Mother didn't have time to waste turning donuts to twist them. So she's a busy woman. She can't flip these donuts. She wants them to twist themselves. Almanzo liked baking day, but he didn't like Saturday night. On Saturday night, there was no cozy evening by the heater with apples, popcorn, or cider. That's what they do on school nights. But Saturday night was bath night. Do any of you hate taking a bath or shower? Well, if you feel that way, Almanzo feels the same. After supper, Almanzo and Royal again put on their coats and caps and mufflers and mittens. A muffler is like a big scarf, kind of. They carried a tub from the wash tub outdoors to the rainwater barrel. Everything was ghostly with white, with snow. The stars were frosty in the sky, and only a little faint light came from the candle in the kitchen. The inside of the rainwater barrel was coated thick with ice. And in the center, where the ice was chopped every day to keep the barrel from bursting, the hole had grown smaller and smaller. Royal chopped at it, and when his hatchet went through with an oozy thud, the water welled up quickly because the ice was squeezing it from all sides. It's odd that water swells when it freezes. Everything else gets smaller in the cold. That's really good observation. Water expands in the cold, so that's why, like, if you have a regular, like, just bottle of water, and if you leave it outside on a freezing night, it probably will explode or it's bursting. So Everything else, though, gets a lot smaller in the cold. Water is pretty unusual in that way. Almanzo began dipping water and floating pieces of ice into the wash tub. So he's getting all this ice that they already have to use water for it, or to make it into water. It was cold, slow work, dipping through the small hole, and he had an idea. Long icicles hung from the kitchen eaves. The eaves are like the outside part of a house. I'll actually get a picture for this part too. It's the part of the roof that like hangs off the side. There's a good picture. Oh, there's the soffit. But so it's this overhang, the part of the roof that hangs over outside of the wall. Those are the eaves. So long icicles hung from that on the kitchen part of the house. At the top, they were a solid piece of ice. Then their pointed tips hung down almost to the snow. Almanzo took hold of one and jerked, but only the tip broke off. The hatchet had frozen to the porch floor where Royal had laid it, but Almanzo tugged it loose. He lifted it up in both hands and hit the icicles. An avalanche of ice came down with a splintering crash. It was a glorious noise. He likes that. "Hi, gimme," Royal said, but Almanzo hit the icicles again. The noise was even louder than before. "You're bigger than I be. You hit him with your fists," Almanzo said. So Royal hit the icicles with both of his fists to knock them all down. Almanzo hit them again with the hatchet. The noise was immense. How would your parents feel if you were making that kind of noise? Almanzo yelled and Royal yelled, and they hit more and more icicles down. Big pieces of ice were flying all over the porch floor. And flying pieces pitted the snow. They're just pointing straight into the snow. Along the eaves, there was a gap as though the roof had lost some missing teeth. Mother flung open the kitchen door. What is she going to say? "Mercy on us," she cried. "Royal, Almanzo, be you hurt?" She's afraid someone got hurt. "No, Mother," Almanzo said meekly. "Then what is it? What be you doing?" Almanzo felt guilty. But they'd not really been playing when they had work to do. "Getting ice for the bath water, Mother," he said, as if that's all it was, just getting ice. "My land, such a racket I never heard. Must you yell like Comanches?" Look at that. It's a Native American tribe we learned about. And they lived close to this area. And they're, remember, the fierce warriors, the only one stronger than the Apaches. So that's what that's what Mother thinks that these boys sound like. Mother's teeth chattered in the cold, and she shut the door. Almanzo and Royal silently picked up the fallen icicles and silently filled the tub. It was so heavy, they staggered when they carried it, and Father had to lift it onto the kitchen stove. Very heavy. Now the ice melted while Almanzo greased his moccasins and Royal greased his boots. In the pantry, Mother was filling the 6-quart pan with boiled beans, putting in onions and peppers and the pieces of fat pork, and pouring scrolls of molasses all over. Then Almanzo saw her open the flour barrels. She flung rye flour and cornmeal into the big yellow crock, and stirred in milk and eggs and things, and poured the big baking pan full of yellow-gray rye and Injun dough. He has so much cooking to do. Rye and Injun dough, I think I have what that means. It's a combination of rye and corn dough, and it's named after the Native Americans. "You fetch the rye and Injun, Almanzo. Don't spill it," she said. She snatched up the pan of beans, and Almanzo followed more slowly with the heavy pan of rye and Injun. Father opened the big doors of the oven and the heater, and Mother slid the beans and the bread inside. They would slowly bake there till Sunday dinner time, which is lunchtime for them. So they are working on all of this Saturday night for Sunday's lunch, already baking it and everything. Then Almanzo was left alone in the kitchen to take his bath. His clean underwear was hanging on a chair back to air and warm. The washcloth and towel and the small wooden pannikin of soft soap were on another chair. He brought another wash tub from the woodshed and put it on the floor in front of the open oven door. He took off his waist and one pair of socks and his pants. Then he dipped some warm water from the tub on the stove into the tub on the floor. Kind of like this. I know it looks like he's probably naked, but it's not showing anything. We've got this warm water that was the icicles that have melted down, and he's bringing it down here. This is what he's taking a bath in. But Mother would look when he went into the dining room. Oh, wait, sorry. Let me go back. So then he dipped some warm water from the tub on the stove into the tub on the floor. He took off his other pair of socks and his underwear, and his bare skin felt good in the heat from the oven. So he's close enough that even though he's naked and about to take his bath, he's warm enough from the stove. He toasted in the heat, and he thought he might just put on his clean underwear and not take a bath at all. He's thinking, this is so toasty and warm. I'll sit here, but then I'll just not take a bath. But Mother would look. So she still checks in on on Almanzo because he's young. And sometimes young kids don't clean themselves as well as they should. So he stepped into the water. It covered his feet. With his fingers, he dug some of the brown, slimy, soft soap from the pannikin and smeared it on a washcloth. Then he scrubbed himself well all over. The water was warm around his toes, but it felt cold on his body. His wet belly steamed in the heat from the oven, but his wet back shivered. And when he turned around, his back seemed to blister, but his front was very cold. So he washed as quickly as he could, and he dried himself and got into his warm underwaist and his woolly long drawers, and he put on his long woolen nightshirt. Then he remembered his ears. He took the washcloth again, and he scrubbed his ears and the back of his neck. He put on his nightcap. He felt very clean and good, and his skin felt sleek in the fresh, warm clothes. It was the Saturday night feeling. So the Saturday night feeling is being clean and also really warm. It was pleasant, but Almanzo didn't like it well enough to actually take a bath for it. So he does like the feeling of when he's clean. What he doesn't like is the actual bath. If he could have had it his way, he wouldn't have taken a bath till springtime. Although I can't blame him because it's so cold to think of, even if you're next to the stove and warm there, to get cold enough to take your clothes off and then get in and out when it's under like 40 below zero. Sounds so miserable. He did not have to empty his tub because if he went outdoors after taking a bath, he would catch cold. Alice would empty the tub and wash it before she bathed in it. Then Eliza Jane would empty Alice's, and Royal would empty Eliza Jane's, and Mother would empty Royal's. Late at night, Father would finally empty Mother's and take his bath. And the next morning, he would empty the tub for the last time. So everybody uses that same water since there's not much of it. Well, not that they have all that water on the stove and everybody's using that water. They pour some in, Almanzo takes his little bath, and then he pours the dirty water out before the next person takes their bath. But why do you think they have to do that? And from what it sounds like, they only do this once a week. It's only Saturday nights that they take this bath. Why do you think that is? Well, it's a big deal to take a bath. They have to get all the ice, bring it in, boil it on the stove, and then it's going to be warm enough for them to each take a little bit. And it takes all night long for everybody to take theirs. Back when I was teaching in Bethlehem, I didn't have hot water always. There'd be a lot of times when actually there was no running water at all, kind of like a couple weeks ago when the pipes for a lot of people were freezing and people didn't have running water. But it happened all the time. There would be water shortages. And so I had to do this as well. Go take some water from one place and then bring it up to the kitchen and boil it so that the water was hot enough to take a bath or a shower with. So it is not fun. It's a long process. Now, Almanzo went into the dining room in his clean, creamy white underwear and socks and nightshirt and cap. Mother looked at him and went to her to be inspected. And he went to her to be inspected. Maybe some of you still have to do this, or at one time your parents had to double check. Did you get your ears? Did you get every area that needs to be clean? So she laid down her knitting and she looked at his ears and the back of his neck, and she looked at his soapy clean face. And she gave him a hug and a squeeze. There, run along with you to bed. So she's proud of Almanzo. He cleaned himself well. He lighted the candle and he padded quickly up the cold stairs and blew out the candle and jumped into the soft, cold feather bed. He began to say his prayers, but went to sleep before he finished them. So, a nice feeling, but he does not like bath time. Okay, a couple questions before we head out. That's the end of the chapter. How does Mother make her donuts? She twists this dough, and then she flops them on the stove to fry in oil, and they just twist themselves in the oil. What is special about hers or different? The fact that they're the twist kinds rather than the ones with the hole in the middle. And it's a really smart thing that she does that. What about, what other chores do you think might be as difficult as bath time for the Wilders? They can't just turn on the tap and let a bathtub fill up. What are they going to, or what other chores might be difficult? Maybe a lot of the cooking would be more difficult because they don't go to the store to get certain things. They have to get the crops from their own garden as their vegetables, and they have their own animals that they would have to use for their meat. So they go through all of those things by themselves. Do you think cleaning's even harder? Maybe. Yeah, they have different materials that they use to clean with. So I think that almost every chore would have been harder back then, but they enjoy it and they have a really full life. And what bedtime clothing does he have to put on after his bath? I need to remind myself of what he ended up wearing. He went into the dining room in his clean, creamy white underwear and socks and nightshirt and cap. So he's got long underwear, which is basically like pajama bottoms, and socks, a nightshirt, and a cap. He wears a cap to bed. So he has to stay really warm because it's so cold. And once he's snuggled up in bed under a blanket, I bet he's warm. But at first, you would not be warm at all. Okay, well, that is the end of the chapter. Tomorrow, you're going to hear about what a Sunday is like for the Wilders. So what do you think they do on a Sunday? Well, we already know that they're going to have a delicious meal because they've been preparing it on Saturday night, but we'll see what else they do. That's the end of the chapter. I'll talk to you all soon. Hope you're enjoying the story. I'll see you later. Bye.